when we think about the last days, what are some of the events in the world, things that are happening, that make you think we're living at the end? And I'll let you answer that out loud, not to yourself. One of my favourites is Brexit, yes. How exciting was that? I'm still excited by Brexit. I mean, Brexit gave rise to none other than Donald Trump as well, because it's the same spirit. Everybody is getting sick to death of being told what to do by tyrannical people. It doesn't mean they've got a better idea, as you probably are well aware if you see any of his tweets. But we're sick of it. And it's the people, it's democracy, it's the crazy frog-like spirit saying, we're sick of this. And it's the spirit of madness still working in the earth. What else? What else makes us think? Israel in the land again, that's fantastic. And what about what they're doing, negotiating now with the greatest Satan on earth? Well, from America's point of view, that is Russia themselves. What's Russia even interested in that area for? That's right, the spoil. And Israel, potentially, they will become Russia's greatest competitor with those natural gases found off Haifa in the Leviathan natural gas field there. But what have they found in Egypt just recently as well? Amazing, even more easily accessible natural gases and gold in Egypt. It's simply incredible. Russia will want some of that. Israel will be trying to juggle, negotiate with this dragon. They'll have no hope when it's time to think an evil thought. But which one of us? Tell me anyone, put your hand up if anybody here thought we would still be around when we saw Russia just sitting there in Syria. That blows my mind completely. Never, ever, ever would have thought of that. And now I'm sort of used to it. I hate that I get used to it. It is utterly incredible. Russia just sitting there on the door, just above Israel. Trump is an isolationist. He doesn't even want anything to do with the Middle East. He says he wants to help Israel, but we know all lovers are going to forsake her. In the end, I don't think it's because America aren't able to fight. I think they won't be willing. There's not going to be any excuses, like when God's Son was crucified. Nobody had an excuse. Nobody came to his aid. Everybody left him. Everybody's going to leave Israel high and dry. Even the UK, they'll probably put some sort of a force in there. Russia will easily defeat, and they'll go, well, it's better that one goes out so that we can all have peace. You know that's how the world rolls. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens that way. These are all current events. We've got the immorality in the world. We don't even need to talk about that. We've got all sorts of problems with the ozone layer, and if you believe in global warming, which they do, they believe in it, and it is practically debilitating people with perplexity. All those problems. We just want to today have a look at another perspective for the current events, which you probably feel it. Maybe you haven't looked at it in so many terms as we're going to look at today. It's a big problem. We have a massive problem. What effect are the last days having on us? The effect of unprecedented exponential change. Now, I want to start off with a few symptoms of the last days, and some of these are maybe humorous, but I think they're extreme and they're quite true. So teachers can now get homicide insurance. I don't know if anybody knows that, but for us teachers, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm being facetious. I work at a Christadelphian school. I'm not scared any longer. But when I worked at the public schools, it was true. A Texas man was booked for doing over 387 kilometres an hour. Now, I don't know what you think about that, but that's too fast, isn't it? We're all in a rush sometimes, but seriously, that's too fast. How does he do that speed? People, think about this. You can purchase your prayers. That can be said out loud for you on a computer for $10, non-stop. Now, obviously we wouldn't do anything like that, but There must be some people that do it because there's a market out there. Religious people that have people who they don't know, probably a robotic mechanical voice too, saying their prayers for them. Time magazine reports kids burning out at 9 years old. Now, I don't know about you, but I know some of these kids. Maybe you're one of those parents. Rush them to school, maybe music lessons before school. After school, they got music lessons, and then tutoring, and then Bible class, and then this and that. And honestly, do you feel that? Some of us, I know some of those kids. This is, I think, now that my 6 children have grown up, I thought, well, I wish this was developing, a 5-day nappy. The mum says she just doesn't have time. The baby doesn't seem to care. Imagine that. That would have been easy. Harvard uni man diagnosed with exhaustion. He was pushing it, hit a wall, boom. He checked out. He went into hospital. The doctors, they ran all the tests. They said he's exhausted. Complete breakdown. This is an academic. What's going on in society? People are wheezing and worn out. A woman once in an interview said that she can't wait to go to the dentist. And a dentist reported that people are falling asleep during root canal. Now, can you believe something like that? I still find it fearful to go to the dentist. I do. In the 60s, no futurist ever predicted that we'd be working as hard as what we are today. In fact, in 1967, they had a full Senate committee, and they predicted that by 1985, think of that, how far away that is from how far removed from us it is. We'd be working 22 hours per week, and we'd be retired by 38. And they had good data and pooled knowledge, and nobody laughed. They all nodded and went, oh, and took notes. They believed in it. And yet that's not the reality of the new millennium, is it? Who's working 22 hours? Is anyone here retired by 38? I mean, it does happen. I haven't worked it out. But that's not the reality of the new millennium. The reality of the new millennium is this. Men are working 48 hours on average a week. 48. And the women are working 41 hours. And, if you're one of those women or sisters that are working, you're tired because when you get home, you've got another 40 or 50 hours of domestic duties to attend to once you get home as well. Now that's stressful. I mean, the men, it's similar. They're working 48 hours. They get home, they've got to do 1 or 2 hours of domestic duties. So that's up to 50 hours. It's stressful, it is. It's very, very stressful. This is the reality of the new millennium. And I like this. This is just lighten it up a little bit. A maxim that's never ever been transgressed. No husband has ever been shot while doing the dishes. And it gets stressful sometimes at home, doesn't it? So for the brethren, if you're feeling frightened, just go and stand at the sink. You'll be safe there. I'll just follow through a few more. Where 36% of people are feeling or reporting that they're feeling rushed all the time. The average manager is interrupted 202 times per day. 8 months of our lives are spent opening junk mail. I don't even look at it. I let the kids get it. I know it's there. I tell them, go to the letterbox, get out the mail. You keep all the rubbish, just give me the things that I need. I don't want to look at it. It is an absolute waste of time. We spend a whole year of our life searching for misplaced objects on our desk. You've seen my desk. You can imagine what my desk is like. Do you know how far the average misplaced object travels? 25 centimetres. I don't want to be doing that with my life. What about sleep? Look at this. In 1850, people got 9 hours sleep. Or 9.5 hours sleep, I think it was. And it's been going down since. To the point where in 1990, we're getting 7 hours sleep a night. Now, that's not good enough. Does anybody know how many hours sleep Einstein got? Einstein said he needed 11 hours sleep. Now, I know most of us aren't Einstein, I get that. But we've got this American footballer that says, hey, you know what? I only need 2 hours sleep. And I sort of think, well, you've got Einstein on one hand and this guy on another. I mean, it's up to you to make up your own mind, seriously. But the stats are out there. We're not getting enough sleep. We're stressed and worn out. 22% admit to falling asleep while driving. It's not very good, is it? And 54% of the people say they're more exhausted after a holiday than before. In fact, if you ask some of the more elderly brothers and sisters, they would say, well, that's what we used to do. Like 50, 60 years ago, once in the summertime for a week, you'd go to some old mouldy cabin on the beach during summer and you just vegetate for a week. You had a nice book and just read the book, and then you'd come home and you'd be all relaxed and you'd be good for another whole year. That doesn't work anymore. You can't do that. 1 week doesn't work. In fact, they had a study, I think it was out of Israel, that they took a burnt out, stressed out guy. They measured all the burnt out parameters in his life, and they gave him like a whole month away from it. And they managed to decompress all these burnt out parameters so that he was feeling good again. They sent him back into his own life. Within 3 weeks, he was back to baseline burnout. Within 3 weeks. Now, we know the story of that you can't just, for 1 week in the summertime, recharge your batteries. It doesn't work. We've got to work out a way to restore some margin in our life so that we can give it to the service of the truth. And we've got to ask ourselves, are these things, as funny as they are and as extreme as they are, most of those things are true, most of them, I'm not sure which ones aren't, but you can understand, we've all seen that. What's happening to us? Is this having an effect on us in the truth? There's something going on that's causing society to be wheezing, worn out, overcommitted, overloaded. Something's going on and it's a big problem in our lives. You dip the bucket into the well, you pull the bucket up, there's got to be something there, doesn't there? There's got to be something in your bucket. If your well is dry, brothers and sisters, if it's dry, we've got to find some ways to restore some energy for God and some service. So the whole world is fundamentally flawed at the moment. It's environmentally, it's physically, it's emotionally, it's absolutely exhausted. And we know that it can't go on the way it is. So if I asked you, what's causing all this? The first and easiest answer is obviously 2 Timothy 3, we're in the last days, things are really, really bad. We know that, it's the way it is. But the reason is this thing called, am I going forwards or backwards? This thing called progress, okay? Now, progress is biblically normal, okay? God said when he made the world for us to go and work on the earth. Everybody progresses. I'm not finished yet, and God still has progress for me. But progress works like this, and progress is not as pure as we would like it to be. It works through these are the biggest words I have ever said, and I won't say them again: differentiation, proliferation, and combination. So what does that mean? How does progress work? Well, if we cut down a tree, dragged it in here, laid it down, said, progress, would you be a deer and differentiate the tree for us? You know what progress would do? Make nice podiums like this, platforms, tables, wooden spoons, and that's what progress would do. That's how it differentiates. It breaks things up into smaller things, smaller bits. Once we used to have a day, and then someone said, let's invent a sundial. And all of a sudden our day's been carved up, not just into hours, but now into minutes and seconds and nanoseconds, and we're on our toes. And then after that, everything just proliferates and combines together, and we have the world in which we are living in. Now, this is whether you accept this or not, it doesn't matter. This is the river we're all swimming in. It's going to happen to us. This is our culture. And one thing's for sure, absolutely every single time, without exception, progress gives us more and more of everything faster and faster, and it leads to more stress, change, complexity, speed, and overload. Now, I think when you look up at that list there, some of those things you probably get and you know what they mean. We're going to go through each one of them, just think about them just for a little bit. And see if your life, as you're using this as a sounding board, ask yourself, how can I start to cut down? Because that's how I want to finish off, with a few slides thinking about how can we start just to pull back a little bit. Just a little bit. Because if I said to you, is this year going fast to you? Do you think this year's going fast? Like, to me, I rate this as the fastest year I've ever had in my life. But I said that last year. And I said that the year before that. And I said it the year before that too. And it just seems like everything's getting faster and faster. It's absolutely crazy. So take the first one. Is stress. Is stress bad? What do you think? Is stress bad? Depends, doesn't it? It's a value-neutral word, okay? Stress, one definition of stress is our ability to adapt to change. Now, change is going at a lightning pace, and stress, we need some stress in our life. If you said you don't want any stress, and I just parked you in the chair there, and come check your pulse in 6 months, you'd be dead. You'd be a skeleton by then. You need some sort of stress in your life. And so they did tests between a high-stress environment and a low-stress environment. Guess which one they chose? Have a guess which one people chose. High-stress environment. And you'd choose it too, but you'd say, well, I'd like to choose it for myself. But you know, kids have got a word for the low-stress environment. Does anybody know what that is? Boring. And the thing is, you don't like it any more than they do. It's just that you haven't been bored for 10 years. So you forget that you hate it as much as they do. And I know what this is like because I want everything to stop, but my house, as you can well imagine, does not ever stop. So stress is good, but too much stress. I'm not exalting a hyper-stress environment either, because what happens is, reliably, if you push beyond a certain limit, things start to break down. Physically, you can't, your physicality wanes. Mentally, you just become too stressed and you can't function properly. Your productivity starts to go down, you rush, you make mistakes. That's what absolutely happens. If you know things about adrenaline fatigue, has anybody ever heard about that? Your hypothalamus and your neurons breaking down. Have you ever heard about it? It's probably because you've been in that situation. Too much stress. A brother at home who I love absolutely dearly, he had a breakdown. He had stress. His was a lot of ecclesial stress too. That's not usually the diagnosis though, is it? That we've got so much ecclesial stress. Usually it's because we're trying to force the ecclesia into our already stressful lives that we could, if we learned, to cut down a little bit. This brother, he absolutely hit the wall and he couldn't sleep. For 2 weeks, he did all the normal things. He went to work, kissed his wife goodbye, he played with the kids, but at night he just sat there in the chair and he was wired, shaking like this, and he couldn't sleep for 2 weeks, and then it boom, it hit. Too much adrenaline. And it took him over 12 months to claw his way back out of that, and he's never as good as what he once was. Now, that's happening to people out there. It may have happened to you or be happening to you. All of us have been bumping on there for some time. We all feel it. There's absolutely no doubt at all. So these are the observations. Now, what about change? What about change? Is change good? Of course not. I'm not perfect, as I said before. God's got a lot of change for me to do. But what's happening at the moment is change is going at such an unbelievable rate. It's blinding us. We actually can't compute it properly. I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So the kids would know this. Does anybody know how many times you can fold a piece of paper? Because this is always behind our intuition. 7 is right. Now, the first time I did that, I said, that's rubbish. And I folded and got really fat, and I went, oh, I can't even get the 7th fold. But just suspend disbelief for a moment. Does anybody know how wide that bit of paper would be if you could fold it 40 times? It would reach from here to the moon. Now, unless you're a whiz mathematician like our brother over there, you wouldn't know that. Because our intuition is always way behind the curve. But change is going at such an exponential rate, we can't keep up with it. For example, in 1800, there was 1 billion people on Earth. Now, I don't know how long it took, how long we've been here. A few thousand years, 1 billion people, 1800. 1 billion. And then, 130 years later, they had a party and they got to 2 billion. But it only took 30 years after that to reach 3 billion. And then, 15 years later, we got to 4. Now that's an odd number. How many is that, Chris? I only do English, and not very well either. 5 billion people after, is that 12 years? You think, oh, maybe it's slowing down a bit. 998, we've got 6 billion. So 1,800 years to reach 1 billion, then it only took 200 years to reach 6 billion. Now, you think, okay, well, so what? Well, I want to show you what that looks like on a graph. That's what it looks like. Everyone's seen exponentiality on a graph. It's a hockey stick curve. It actually never goes vertical, but the thrust is almost like a rocket ship taking off. And our brains are always here because day to day, things don't happen and change like this from day to day. It's unseen. But if you graph it, you can see it. Some of the older brothers and sisters, I mean, it's not even that well done, but at least you get some sort of visualisation. Some of the older brothers and sisters are born just before the curve. Like by the 30s and 60s, like 30s, 40s and 50s, things are really starting to puff along. But most of us have been born here in this vertical thrust, and it's just our culture and our life. But it hasn't been like that all the time. And that's what's scary. Scary because the new generation don't understand the old, and the old don't understand the new. And what's all this stress? Because they've got good habits and practices. And they're probably feeling a little bit busier than what they ever were, but they're nowhere near as busy as us. Another example is you can help me with this, the Pacific Ocean, 100 million square kilometres, okay? There's enough room for all the land on Earth plus another Asia in the Pacific Ocean. So it's really big, the Pacific Ocean. Now just let's assume for a moment that it dries up and it's our job to refill it. And we start with a single drop of water. And we continue to double the amount. So we go from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, from 4 to 8, from 8 to 16, from 16 to 32. That's 5 doublings. Then I go to 32 drops. Now, I'm going to get lost now. 32 to 64, then 60. That's it for me. So, have a guess. How many doublings will it take before we fill it up again? Now, there's always somebody that goes, 16. I'm going to need another drink now, you said that. Right? It's 80. If you wanted to know, it's about 80. I mean, this is good science. I didn't do it, obviously, but 80. But what happens is, look at this. How full is the ocean? This is why we don't get it. How full is the ocean at the 70th doubling? We think, we'd be swimming. Swimming is hardly a puddle. It's actually less than 1/10 of 1% full at the 70th doubling. And then all of a sudden, things get crazy. And so at the 79th doubling, it's half full, then blink and bam, it's gone. Like that. That's the world we live in. We're in the 70s. When Shakespeare was a young lad, and when Shakespeare died at 80, whatever it was, if you took a snapshot of the world when he was young, and a snapshot of Shakespeare's world at the end of his life, you wouldn't even see any change. This didn't even happen to him. Nothing. That's our world. It hadn't even happened. There was no measurable change. Everything was linear and progressive and just really nice. We have a sister who's passed on now, but she lived 107. She had seen more change in her life than in all recorded history. In the last 100 years, we've gone through more change than in all recorded history. They predict that in the next 20 years, in the next 20 years, we're going to go through another 100 years worth of change. Does that make sense? Probably not. But this guy called Ray Kurzweil said, let me read it exactly. In 100 years, in one more 100 years, we're going to go through 20,000 years worth of change. Except it can't. That's impossible. It's never going to happen. The Father is not going to sit still for that long. I'm showing you these things because you've got to be aware that if we're stressed, like my father used to say to me, like, what is all this stress leave that people had? Never had it in my day. It's true. They didn't. They didn't have it. And I could never understand it either. This is why. We've got no margin anymore. The margin is how much you can carry, your load and your limits. And there's the disparity in between. People used to have a bit of margin. Even busy people. A little bit of margin. If you can carry 10 bricks, and you can carry 8 bricks, and you can carry 5 bricks, I put one more brick on any of you, what are you in? You're in overload. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's got their own capabilities. But if you've got no margin, then you're already maximally loaded up. How does that affect the truth? You may never have heard it put like this. One man said, "Man is flying too fast for a world that is round. Soon he will catch up with himself in a great rear-end collision." And it's true, like, it's fast, but I need it to go faster because I'm not getting things done. I'm rushed all the time and I never have enough time for anything. Enough time to do the readings with the kids, enough time to do first principles with my daughter, who asked me she doesn't want to do it because she's always going out to these classes and this and that with her friends. And then when she wants to do it, I want to do it now. Well, I'm going out just now. I can't do it with you now. Oh, you never want to do first principles with me, Dad? Like, my life is crazy. And I don't think I'm the only one in the room whose life is like this. It's nutty. And, well, because we need a bit more speed, maybe, how many hours is it from here to Detroit? 3, 5? Well, that's right. How long's a piece of string? I know. But let's just say it's 5 hours. What? Look, it takes too long. I mean, what a bore. I haven't got 5 hours to spare. Why don't they just increase it by 10 miles an hour, the speed limit, every year, so that in maybe 15 years' time we can get there in an hour? Why don't they do that? Because reliably, fast is good. Fast is even okay, but too fast, reliably, things that break down. You'll crash and burn in the end. And you've got to know when to stop. You've got to know when to stop. And we're overloaded, physically, emotionally, financially, and even in our time. We are absolutely overloaded. And I'm suggesting, brothers and sisters, that it's the truth every time that suffers. If I could stand up here and say, brothers and sisters, we're overloaded in the truth. Like Moses says, stop being so willing. Stop bringing so much for the temple of God, for the tabernacle. It's too much. If only we could say that. No one's saying that, are they? You ever heard a recorder say, listen, brothers and sisters, you're far too willing. We've got too many volunteers in our meeting. I mean, I've never heard that in my life. Any volunteers, there's a stampede for the door. Because we all feel we're maximally loaded up and we haven't got any time left. It's terrible. It really is. This is telling me why we know that the Lord Jesus Christ is close. So if we've got no margin, or even if we're getting up to 100%, so we're maximally loaded, like if your car is maximally loaded, there's usually, when you're on the interstate, there's a red light that comes on and says, you've got to pull over. You may not even know what it is, but something's going on. It's too hot, maybe less oil or not enough water. Wish I had a light on the end of my nose that said, you're getting overloaded, man. I mean, it'd be going off all the time, but there are symptoms. And we ask, it's a good question though, isn't it? It's an important question because these things are at stake. Our productivity, our longevity, our morale in the truth, our happiness. You know, down there it says joy. Have you ever heard people say, I've heard someone say, Christians have no joy. You think, what? God promises us blessing. It means happiness, joy. Hundreds of times in the Bible, it's our birthright. That's a sad thing, if it's true. Christians have no joy. Everything that affects our godliness and our efficiency and our service to God. So what are some of the symptom complexes? You can find yourself up there. Look at that. Apathy, withdrawal, depression. Who hasn't been there? Work dread, just can't get out of bed on Monday morning. Do not want to face it, can't do it. Or not facing Bible class or going to the hall on Sunday. It's too much. Just way, way too much. Cannot do it. Exhaustion, burnout. Some people, when they get too stressed, they have moral failure and relational problems. Now you can see a cluster of yourself there. I mean, I don't get irritable bowel. Some people do. I'm not even a comfort eater. Some people are. I get headaches though. I get irritable. The kids are like, who are you, Dad? Like, what happened to our real dad? I get irritable. And it just happens. It just comes up on me. I don't have that light on the end of my nose. And so you can find yourself there. You've got to know your individual symptoms. It's very important. So if I just role play for you, we've got 80% down this end, 100% and 120%. Now you imagine, brothers and sisters, you're at 80% and you're feeling, you're busy. Because, by the way, I'm not telling you, I'm not pro-laziness. I'm pro-martyr. We've got to be energetic and positive and dynamic in the truth. We've got to give our lives and sacrifice to God. But you've got to have something to give. So at 80%, you get a phone call. Could you fill in for the Bible class, Brother Matt? Could you fill in? And I go, this week? Well, sure, thanks for asking. I've got a class or two up my sleeve and it'd be great to get back into that again. It'd be a pity to cancel the class, wouldn't it? She said, sure, I'd do that. No worries at all. You hang up, you're happy. And then you get the other phone call. Would you take Sunday school for 3 months because the other teacher, they've gone on mission work, we need someone to teach this class? You go, yes. I love kids. That's wonderful. Thanks for asking me. It'd be really good to get back into the lessons again. I really need that. And to share some of those lessons with the kids, because that's the next generation. We've got to pass it on. I'll do it. You get a phone call from your wife. On Friday afternoon, we should visit that family. We haven't had them over for a long time. And you say, well, when are we going to do it? She says, well, let's do it Saturday. Saturday, that's a great idea. Well, hang up now and ring them straight up. That'll be fantastic. Let's do it. That's 80%. Everyone's feeling good about themselves, aren't they? You get to 100% and you get that phone call, fill in for Bible class. Brother Matt, could you fill in for Bible class? You go, well, I'd want to. I'd really like to, but I'm just so maxed out at the moment. I've just got so many things in the air going. I have to go home, maybe have a family conference, ask my wife, and I really don't know how I'm going to do it at all, but I really wish I could. You know what? I'll do it. I'll just do it this one time and that's it. And you hang up and you go, man, what's happened to me? I used to be so willing and volunteer for things. And you get that take Sunday school phone call for 3 months and you go, you know what? I can't do it now. I really want to do it, but look, down the track when things get better and I have a bit of space in my calendar, let me know then. I'm really sorry, but I can't do it. And what about going out for tea? Yeah, for sure. We've got to have them over. Let's do that. But what is it now? October? Maybe January? When something opens up in our calendar? Let's try January, shall we? And, you start thinking about this, you get to 120%, I don't know, it could be 140, whatever it is on your scale. You get that phone call there, would you fill in for Bible class? And you go, stop right there. I've had enough of this. I'm sick to death of everybody like you laying their problems at my door. In fact, you can take me off the speaking list. No, even better still. My wife and I have been looking for an excuse to leave this place. We're going to another ecclesia, if you're lucky. No apologies. You just blow up. Would you take Sunday school for 3 months? You go, what? Are you kidding? I hate kids. Whatever made you think I want to do something like that? There's no way I'm doing anything like that. Where'd you get that idea from? You slam the phone down their ear and your wife says, how about we visit that family? You can visit whoever you want. I'll tell you what I'm going to do Friday afternoon when I get home. I'm going to go to my room, I'm going to push the fridge over near my bed. I've got a bunch of DVDs. I'm staying there till Monday. You do whatever you want to do. And sometimes, and it's true, because I've done that plenty of times, because I think that's been me a lot of times. And I think I'm overplaying it. People just go, yeah, that's what my life's like sometimes. It's crazy, even in Canada, which from Australia, you think we're laid back. We think Canadians, everything's cool in Canada. Do you ever feel like you're this busy? In the last days, brothers and sisters, the age in which we live is historically unmatched. The new epidemic is exhaustion. It's absolutely killing us. How can we get out of it? Through stress, change, complexity, speed and overload. As you saw, we're on that exponential curve. Now, maybe we've got a few minutes, I don't know, but we know what the answer is. Let's just talk about just for a few minutes. We know what the answer is. We've got to say no. Not to the truth. If you're one of those people that are so busy in the truth, God bless you. But just generally speaking, I'm not talking about those people. And even if you are, maybe you need to pull back a little bit. But generally, I'm speaking to the rest of us who are busy with other things, trying to push the truth and cram the truth into our already busy life. We've got to be intentional, right, to make it happen. We've got to make it happen. Look at this. History is something that happens to people. What happens is always different from what people would rather have done. So there's a difference between actual change and felt change. So I don't know if anyone's ever done this before. People think they've got no space in their world at all, no margin. Have you ever walked outside to the meter box and just hit that switch that says off? If you did that, you would have all the margin you wanted to in the world. And that's actually fun. We've done it with the kids because I thought if I'm going to use it, like once, okay, I've done it. Years ago, and the kids loved it. We had a little fire out the back. We only cooked what we could actually cook, like in the 1800s before there was electricity. The kids had a great time. I was a little bit irritable. It took me a long time to get into it, I admit, but I had space. No one could ring us up. Took all the phones, chucked them, to put them off. We could do it. We could do it. We've got to learn to say no. If we've got 36 hours of things to do in our life and we've only got 24 hours, even if you are maximally effective and everything just is going according to plan, you get one flat tyre, your day is gone. How many times do you get a flat tyre? How many times things go wrong in your life? That happens all the time. There's hiccups. And then you blow up at the person which you want to project the problem onto. And it's all your fault for being that busy in the first place. I know this is me again. Happens, brothers and sisters. We've got to tame technology. Time-saving technologies don't. Instead, they compress, consume and devour time. Look what we've got. Phones, emails, beepers, computers. It's incredible, isn't it? If Alexander Bell was here, I probably would sidekick him to the head. You just get so sick of it. And yet we love our devices. Can't go anywhere without it. We could disconnect, as we've already said. Simplify and unclutter. Everything we own owns us. We only use 20% of what we own. That's incredible. So you've got the 80-20 rule there. 20% of what we own. You think about that number and what you have in your own house. So theoretically, you could go home and throw out 80% of what you have and still have a good life. 80%. Like, it's funny, isn't it? Where do they get these numbers from? And how do they get into my place in the first place? It's true. Everything we own owns us. We've got to maintain it. It takes time. I don't know if you like washing cars, mowing lawns. I don't like doing those things. I hate it. I hate mowing lawns. I pay my kids any time to do it. I don't find it enjoyable. Maybe you do. It's a good time to relax. Maybe washing the car is. But to me, it just owns me. I'm not washing you. Wash yourself. I wish it would rain. We've got to cultivate contentment. It's a conscious decision. And we know this. If only I had that. If I had that, I'd be happy then. It's not true. Give a man everything he wants, and at that moment, everything will not be everything. There's no threshold of satiety provable in economic theory. In other words, if you give somebody everything, they still want more. Now, none of us believe it. No middle class believe it, but it's true. Those people that have run the rainbow out to the end and scrambled for everything and have been depressed and broken relationships and had a broken life because of it, they realise there's no pot of gold at the end of it. Absolutely not. We're to slow the pace and eliminate hurry. And I know these are just words, brothers and sisters. I know you're thinking, yeah, well, it's easier said than done. I get it. We're in that vertical thrust of that graph. But you at least need to be aware of these things. Like, besides the fact that Russia's in Syria, and the morality of the world's bad, and the ozone layer is probably depleting, and there are so many problems with the world. This is another reason why we know Christ is going to return. Control our debt, that gets out of hand. We see too much, we want too much, we buy too much, then we owe too much. And that's true, isn't it? Massive debt has been normalised in the last 20 years. It's a way of keeping us chained. Absolutely true. We need to nourish our relationships. We need to sit down with somebody. When you're at the ecclesia just shaking hands with 50 people, stop. Ask somebody, how are you going? They'll tell you. But be interested in them. Actually project your interest. Be interested in them. Let them speak. It's measurably cathartic to let someone just tell you, like, I've had a bad week, I did this. Don't say, well, you should have done this, this and that. That's a male thing to do. I do it all the time. No one takes my advice anyway. Just let them speak. They'll feel better for it. You'll make a connection with that brother and sister. We need to connect more in our ecclesias. We are living in the last days, brothers and sisters. It is incredible. People have said it before, this is an unprecedented age. Before this age, this one trumps them all. There's no pun on that guy's name, by the way. This is the worst age we've ever lived in. This is the age where Christ will return. He's going to squeeze us, he's going to test our faith and our resolve, but we've got to be here for him. And we've got to remain faithful and somehow keep our heads